psychiatrist doesn't believe me, but it's not delusions of grandeur if I can do it. Do you hear me? I can do it, you.
She's right. It's not delusions of grandeur if you can actually do it. The issue is when it comes to delusions of grandeur or grandiose delusions, these are things that probably cannot be done. So let's say this lady here in the video says that she can bench 250 pounds and she weighs 115 pounds, right? She possibly could bench 250 pounds, right? So if she goes to the gym and you see her put up 250 pounds on the bench press, then it's not a grandiose delusion because she's able to do it. When we're talking about grandiose delusions, these are fixed false beliefs that somebody has. And even when they're presented with objective evidence that that thing is not true, that thing is not possible, they still believe it. So when we're talking about delusions, this is a core feature of thought disorders like schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. If a person has bipolar disorder and they're in a manic episode, you can also experience psychosis. So you could have delusional ideation. Delusions are fixed false beliefs. So if we're talking about grandiose delusions, we have to separate it into two categories, all right? We have bizarre delusions, and then we have non-bizarre delusions. When we're talking about bizarre delusions, these are things that cannot happen. There's just no way that this is ever possible. And we don't challenge patients on their delusional ideation. We just gently enforce the rules of the unit if we're in the psychiatric hospital, and we just do our best to reorient them, but we never challenge them on their delusions. If we're talking about a bizarre delusion, right? If a patient comes up to me and they say that they can use their superpowers mentally to stop traffic, and they can use their mind to take cars and lift it off the ground on the highway and all the way into the sky. I mean, I've heard this before. That would be a bizarre delusion because we know that there's no way that you can use your mind to take a car off the ground and into the sky. That's not possible. That is a bizarre delusion. Now we have non-bizarre delusions. So if a patient comes up to me and they say that they are good friends with Joe Biden and they can influence key decisions in the United States government with the snap of a finger, that's a non-bizarre delusion. I've heard that before. I had a patient who told me that they were really good friends with Joe Biden and they can make Joe Biden do anything in the world. And this is when he was vice president. So this was years ago. They said that they're in communication with Joe Biden constantly. And if they need any law to be passed, they can do it right now, right here. So obviously, we know that it takes time for laws to be put into effect. So you can't make laws happen right here and right now. However, could that patient have had a relationship with Joe Biden? Possibly. Maybe that patient went to school with Joe Biden. Maybe they know Joe Biden personally. So who am I to say that this patient does not know Joe Biden, the former vice president and former president of the United States of America? That part is a non-bizarre delusion because who knows? The patient was, at least 50, 60 years old at the time, and it was like 8-10 years ago. So maybe this patient knows Joe Biden. Maybe they're from the same neighborhood or something like that. So could this patient have had a relationship with Joe Biden? Potentially. So because this thing could happen and it's plausible, it's a non-bizarre delusion. So we understand that it's probably false. So we know that it could happen. It's not 1,000% unlikely, even though it is unlikely, but we know that it could be true. So that's a non-bizarre delusion. If somebody says that they know Donald Trump or they know Obama or they know Joe Biden or they know some celebrity. I live in Los Angeles, so I have friends that are celebrities. So if a patient says that they know Selena Gomez, it could be true. That's a non-bizarre delusion, but more than likely, it probably is false. So it's important to distinguish between the type of delusion that a patient has because these are fixed false beliefs. You don't want to challenge them, and you just want to gently reorient them back to reality.